Hello again, friends. Welcome to Backyard Bible Study. In this segment, this time, we're going to be talking a little bit more about questions. So about those questions themselves about the Bible. Again, I'm taking most of what we'll be doing directly from Terence Freedham's book about the Bible, Short Answers to Big Questions, because that's the book that we'll be studying here. As we take a look in this particular section, what we have is really Freedheim introducing us to the idea of the questions that we bring. There are all kinds of questions that people have about the Bible, and particularly in today's day and age, many of them in the Me Too generation and a lot of what we've experienced since the 50s, 60s, and 70s really have come up with biblical patriarchy and violence being topics that people really want to know about. Those of you from other traditions might remember liberation theology and some of those kinds of things, or the feminist movement in culture, the womanist movement in other areas. These issues and topics are often shaped by the cultures of the day, and then we get again to that idea of culture and context and circumstance, because we understand the Bible to be a living document. And as it is a living document, God continues to speak the truths of God's message to us all the way through, even though these are from flawed and character-filled people over the thousands of years. Even to today, we seek to find God's messages coming to us of hope, healing, and wholeness in the midst of who we are. As Paul would remind us, as cracked earthen vessels. Yes, we are cracked pots. And even in the midst of all that, we want to know something deeper. So we bring our questions. Today's questions may often be about biblical patriarchy and violence. But why we ask those questions might be equally as important. What is the motivation underneath those? Some people, of course, want to ask questions just to discredit the Bible and people of faith. Others want to come to the defense of their religion right away and what they were taught. What we get is this awareness that faith is often very important. Scriptures and sacred texts are very important. We can look at music, St. Matthew's Passion or Handel's Messiah. There are all kinds of music that lift that up. Look at the names of cities and areas, St. Paul's and others, that are named after biblical sites and understandings. And why is it that even in political speeches we have God bless America, as though God doesn't bless all nations at the same time? What is it that we're looking to do when we bring our questions, and what is our motivation for those questions? Very often our piety and our reverence for the Bible can actually get in the way. In fact, often we find that folks who may have a very strong biblical piety, they love and revere the Bible, may actually not know it very well. They may actually never have read it. They listen intently. They want to know, but perhaps for a number of different reasons, that perhaps maybe they just haven't read the entire text or all of it. And which one? There are questions that abound. Right off the bat, why is there different numbers of biblical books in the Catholic Bible as opposed to the Protestant Bible? What about the Egyptian Coptic Bible that has 88 books, the most number of them all? Have we read all of those texts? What does it mean specifically to read the Bible? And in today's day and age, if someone says, well, the Bible tells me so, the response can often be, so what? What does that matter? Why is the Bible important to some, yet not important at all to others? In the face of such a difficult situation filled with tensions back and forth, some minimal learnings that we carry with us from childhood. God helps those who, what? Help themselves. Is that actually biblical or not? You'll have to look that up. And make sure you look that up in the 45th chapter of Habakkuk and see if you can find that there. In the face of these kinds of understandings that we bring forward from childhood, often we tend to fix those in our minds, while new learnings that we might uncover, we don't want to, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. We might just revert to that. Is that really accurate? Is that what we want? It doesn't matter whether we're 70, 80, or 7 or 8. We still have much learning to do in order to come even close to an echo of what the mind of God might be about. So there are all kinds of different ways in which avenues are moving forward. One of the important ways involves asking questions and the interactions and conversations that come from that. Christians really should know the Bible well enough so that they can interact when someone brings forward other ideas. Otherwise, we end up thinking, well, the most important questions really are then whether Jonah was actually swallowed by a fish or whether the world was created in 6 literal days. I'm reading directly from Friedheim's page 3. Are those the most important questions, or is it deeper? What do those actually mean in those stories? It shows the narrowness that we might bring and the need for us to open up our understandings, including the use of those other tools mentioned in an earlier segment, archaeology and anthropology, behavioral sciences, and our understanding of how the world works, including technology and science and the rest, and to bring all of those resources together, and not to just use our own personal experience as though we were the authorities beyond all of these other things. Friedheim talks about the fact that often he finds, for example, it's remarkably common for good church folks to have a negative opinion of the Old Testament. Why is that? Learning more about the Bible can help us to interpret all of what we find there in more mature ways, and to bring ourselves to some good questions. Did Jesus have a Bible? What translation of the Bible should or do I want to use? Why do Jews have a Bible with the same books as the Protestant Old Testament, but in a different order? How did all of these things come? What does it mean? What does it mean to say that the Bible is inspired, or to say that the Bible has authority in your life? Often Friedheim talks about the fact that our personal life experiences do matter, but how do they matter and how do they affect how we read and interpret the Bible? Bringing these types of questions forward is important. All of the questions, simple or complex, because when you really get down to it, living with questions over time can be one of the most important ways to keep us thinking about what are the central matters of the faith that we hold dear. Is it really whether or not Jonah was swallowed by a whale? Or what does it mean to be absolutely over our head and finding a way out? And where does God bring us the hope that's needed? Again, raising questions is a good way to begin that struggle. And that's where we're at. Until we see each other again, God bless.